This call is now being recorded.
No, now it's a record. Pay attention once again. I sent link even to Telegram group right now, and that is link for one of intermediate course. I have anti-plagiarism checking. Pay attention to this economic section. I am going to explain you in short what was done, and do pay attention to the next fact. All this economic section, except of some calculation. When you do, try something similar. Do change it a bit, but don't use completely the same text. Otherwise, it shows that it was stolen. I hope you understand. First, what it was done in this economic section? It's comparison of expenses for assembling, not the whole cost of the item being produced, but expenses in assembly shop. Comparison for two assembly methods. In one case, it was a frame, if I'm not mistaken. Frame assembled by assembly holes. In other case, frame assembled in a jig. Let's use point temporarily. What expenses for assembling consist of? Oh, sorry. Let's do something like that. No. Why it's so slowly? Expenses. That's English. Expenses for assembling. No, let's type it like this. Plus tooling. Plus, no, let it be equipment amortization. Давайте так пишем. Amortization, да? And plus expenses for rent of shop. No, approximately it's like this. Once again, salary, expenses for assembly consist of salary of your employee. That is expenses for tooling. Next is expenses for amortization of equipment, and next are expenses for renting the territory of shop. I hope it was clear a little bit. Now, what is next? How to calculate salary? How to calculate these expenses for tooling and so on. Pay attention once again to this text. Salary calculated. Where is it? Somewhere next. You will see it. No? The salary wages for manufacturing workers. You see, no? It's calculated as so-called specific labor input. Some value of labor input. We don't know what is real labor input, but we may do something like forecast what is labor input depending on, let me to show you. No, I can't show you this now. I will drop this chart a bit later. No, once again, not my computer, in our computer class, but not everything is working properly now. So I can show something like this part, depending on the weight, we have so-called specific labor input and it looks like, let it be like this. For assembly holes, it's like this. In a jig, it's like this. We see two diagrams, and these diagrams, they depend, this specific labor input, they depends on weight. Here it would be some coefficient of labor input and on weight. For instance, I know that my SPA weight is, let it be 12 kilograms. And I may take a couple of such coefficients, no, where the Z values are, no, like Z1. And because of this, I will know so-called whole labor input. It's approximately, of course. But let it be, I'm talking about the jig labor input, you see. Usually for jig it's less, for assembly hole it's greater. What I need to do, how to determine labor input. I know, once again, that this coefficient, let it be 1.2. Multiplied on weight of SPA, 12 kilograms. And how to calculate salary now? For salary, we have so-called tariff rate. Tariff rate, you have seen it somewhere here. It was what? Working tariff rate. No? No, of course, now there are another values. No, let it be. Let it be. I'm talking about jig 100 and by assembly holes 150. So this specific labor input now for jig, I multiply on 100. And I have salary in a jig. Let it be. Next, I'm do the same for assembly holes. I take some coefficient, 1.4. These coefficients now, you understand, I hope. Multi assembly holes, we have another qualification, higher qualification, and this higher qualification, it should be paid. There is explanation how to calculate it. It's for tooling. And so on. No, guys, right now I will not search it in this example. Look, idea is that we are calculating explanations like in front of you. You just need to follow to the same. Maybe values are a little bit different, values of wages and so on. So we are calculating amortization of equipment depending on how many, practically the same for assembly jig and for assembly holes. Depending on how many things we are going to produce. For instance, we have what we have as important parameters. I didn't say at the beginning. Look, important parameters for you would be compulsory the weight of your item and the program. Program you may take around like for instance 52. No? What does it mean 52? It means one airplane per week you are going to produce, or you may take it 26 if you'd like. No, real program. 26 it means 2 airplanes per month because we have 52 weeks. But what you're next going to calculate? Why you see here something like calculating in a table? Yes, it's calculation for some variance of programs in order to understand how the price finally not price, but expenses of assembling depends on amount of airplanes you're going to produce per year. It means that we are talking about some range of these programs like 10, 20, so on. Let it be, I don't know, 300 per year. And for each such a point, you may calculate the price of, not price, expenses for assembling, depending on weight of your item that is fixed. You know, no? It's some fixed, the same weight that you drawn in, you wrote in a drawing. In your title block, and drawing or spar, drawing frame, you have some weight, and you are operating here with this weight, with this mass of your item. And next, you are like checking the range. Let me to show you. So let's imagine that we know what is, now it's another diagram, completely another diagram, top mix up. Now I'm talking about the expenses. These expenses, depending on program. And once again, it comes about the same item each time. About one item, how much one item cost if your program equal to 10, to 20, to 50, to 300. And we are not calculating now, we are talking, no, let's say theoretically. Theoretically, what we may notice, that it consists, once again, red one, it will be G, blue one, it when using this blue color, it would be assembly halls. As you may notice, even by this simple example, salary, in case we are talking about G, salary is less than we are talking about assembly halls. Now, pay attention, what we are adding salary and salary by assembly halls. What is next? Next, we need to talk about amortization and about rent. No, let's talk, that was salary. Oh, sorry. That was salary. Salary for JIG, that one. And salary for assembly halls. Let's talk about shop rent, that one. It depends on how many working places you need. Quite clear that the more items you're going to produce, the more working places. But I need you also to recollect that in one jig or in one working place, we have so-called period of work, in case we are talking about one shift per day. And if we have, no, let's pretend that when we have 260 working days, 260 working days multiplied on 8 hours, we have this 280 hours period. Shop can't work more. One employee work even less, because employee working not 260 days. The employee has also vacations. So employee work even less hours per year. And jig or some workbench, it's also usually doesn't work all this period. It needs some maintenance, it needs some repair maybe. So it's considered like either jig or workbench, they're usually working not longer than during year. But let's imagine that we have calculated that our how it's called, forgot, labor input, да? That labor input in a jig in our case, let me to add weight. This is some insufficient weight. Да? For spa, it's too less, too few. Let it be like this. Да? 120, 120. The spa weight is 120. What does it mean? That labor input 120 multiplied on 40%, 160, yes. 1/3, да, 160 in one case. What if I calculate this labor input? And in other case, 24, да, 164, 144, sorry. I mean labor input, those values of manufacturing of your spa in assembly shop by jig. In a jig, it's a little bit less. By assembly halls, it's greater. What does it mean for you? That you may, no, let's use calculator. Look, jig able to work on this period of time. How many items you may produce during a year in one jig? Divided on 144, and you see then 14 items. So somewhere where you have 10, 30, so on. Now do pay attention. If I, our calculator, if I going to produce 14 items, it's enough. But up to 14. 14 is somewhere here is 14. As I talking about jig, 14 I may produce in one jig. One jig. If I need more program than 14, for instance 28, it means that in this range I need since beginning 2 jigs. In order to meet demands of program, since beginning I need 2 jigs. And next, and next, and next. In each such a place, it's changing the diagram significantly. We will see this next. But what does it mean also for you in terms of rent? It means that rent is also not fixed. Usually we think that it's fixed per one item, but it's not fixed. It's also changeable depending on program. How rent is changeable depending on program? You need more jigs. It means that you need more territory of shop. And pay attention that jig in a shop, it's not only size of jig in a shop, it's also passages around the jig, also territory of something like workbench near the jig compulsory, something like racks for some wardrobe, let's say, open wardrobe, open closet, something like a closet, some shelves. They are necessary to hold tooling, to hold instrument you work with, to hold parts prepared for assembling. So territory of jig is a bit greater than the jig itself, significantly greater. When it comes about assembly halls, also this territory is consists of workbench you are working on, auxiliary workbench, and territory which uses passages, something like racks, as I said you, and so on. And all this is anyway greater than territory of jig. Why? Because jig usually is vertical. We're working with vertical jigs, but when we are working with assembly halls, everything is placed horizontally on a shop, on workbench. And territory by assembly halls usually a bit greater. Let's add to what we did in this diagram, let's add rent now, not even thinking that it's changeable, fixed value. And if even we pretend that this is completely the same, anyway, do pay attention. By jig, this rent, I'm going to add to this line. It's our rent for jig. And it means that I have next line approximately here. And when I'm talking about assembly halls, if even it's the same value. Anyway, I'm adding it. I don't like blinking the light now. I'm already a bit scared. Anyway, I'm adding it to another line. You see that? Next, we have also amortization of equipment. As I said, it depends also on program. It depends on program. Let's pretend that it does not depend on program. In calculations, it will depend on program a bit. If even it's the same, what does it mean amortization of equipment? It means that, for instance, you are buying the riveting press or riveting guns, buckling bars, whatever, no? And you are going to use it during 5 years, for instance, and you understand that you need to take back the money you spent on it during 5 years. It means per 1 year, you're going to take back 1/5, and this 1/5 of money you need to include into each item you're going to produce. If your annual program 10 items, it means that this 1/5 of riveting press you are dividing on 10 and included into each item. If your annual program, what that value, is 300 items, it means that 1/5 of press cost you divide onto 300 of annual program and include it into each item. What I'm talking about that it's not fixed. It also depends on amount of items. But now for simplicity, let's pretend that it's fixed. Really these lines, they also directed like this. What I'm drawing besides of salary only. Salary is the same, but all the lines, they're a little bit deviated like this. Now, to pay attention to the next, once again, let's assume that amortization is like this. And amortization is like this. And we have so-called baseline already. Yes? Really, it's a little bit goes down, not like this. Not horizontal, as I draw it. After you do calculations, you may notice this. No, you see that what I did as baseline, what let it be thick one, and blue one also. Finally, what I have already included, I included salary, I included amortization and rent. What about tooling? Now about tooling, and once again, I remind you, I draw for myself something like limiting lines for jigs, but the same limiting lines I may draw for assembly halls. If I'm talking about assembly halls, that one, pay attention, 160 I said labor input, this 120 kilograms multiplied on specific labor input. Now let's check how many places we need to correspond to this program. All the period of time that divided onto labor in 160. No, Maybe it also must be divided on 2 in my example because we have labor input. Time is usually twice shorter. No, let it be that we're talking about time. It doesn't matter. I'm just mixing up here labor input and time, but let it be. How many things we're able to produce? Forgive me, because of low internet, it's kicking me out permanently. Так, once again, I said that by assembly halls we're able to produce in one working place, yeah, in two working places, and so on. When we're talking about jigs, you have in it, it's a bit longer, yeah, period. Because labor input is less in a jig, no, like we're working a little bit quicker. And this is why we're able to produce in one jig more things during the same time comparatively to assembly halls. No, now it's too much complicated maybe for you. Let's finish in order it does not kill you preliminary before defense. No? Oh, it's not amortization. And now let's add finally cost of tooling. What is this cost of tooling? Now we're talking about this formula once again. No? Tooling. What is more expensive, jig or assembly halls? Of course, jig is more expensive. So if we're talking about the whole price, let it be, of jig, it's twice, thrice, 5 times greater than cost of tooling unit for assembly halls assembling. Because there you need maybe workbench and some clamps. That's jig cost, of course, it's much higher. But do remember that if you may produce, no, how we calculate, you see, да? 14 items in one jig. Means that when we are talking about one item, now we are going to draw it whole price of jig included into this one. If we're talking about 2 items, next point is somewhere what between. Yeah? Of this place, somewhere here. If we're talking about 3, it's somewhere you will see the line, which approximately looks like this. To forgive me. Why I did wrong? What I did wrong? We are talking about baseline Z1. Да? The whole cost of jig is like this. And I'm adding it, as you might see, I'm adding it to the last line. Last line includes salary, rent, and amortization. Now, the whole cost of jig is like this. If we're talking about for one item, if we're talking about producing of two items, it's twice less because we already divide cost of jig on the two items. If I need, it's only 1/3 of the jig, and so on, up to the moment until I have, here I have 14 items. In one jig, I may produce them. So all the curve, sorry, I'm trying. All the curve, it looks approximately like this. Да? That is what where we have 14 this place. It's like 1 divided on 14 of jig cost. Да? Ну, 1/14 of the jig, whole jig, included in the list. But as only you need 15 beginning, you understood it. You are not already at this place. Something like broken place. And actually, at this place, how we calculate this point? 2 cost of jig, 2 jig cost divided on 15 items. If we try to work with real values, you will see that this value is a little bit less than the previous one. That one it's a bit greater. Just recalculate it in any elementary example, and you will see it. And next situation, it's repeated. Like we are going down, 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 almost up to the red line. Never close it. No? And at the moment where we have item number 28, because we are not able to produce more than 28 items in 2 jigs per year. No, as we agreed, our item labor input is done. We have calculated it approximately. Yes, our item labor input is like this. So when we are calculating amount of jigs, we are calculating the all the period one jig may work, and next we divide it onto this value, and we understand that 14 spar MA or 14 frames MA assemble in one jig. 15, it means that since beginning we must work with 2 jigs. Similar story is when we are talking about the assembly halls. What is the difference? Difference that on one hand you have much less cost of tooling. Instead of so great tooling like it was here, you at beginning you will have something like let it be even 10 times less. Here, what approximately it corresponds to this value. So it's less, seems like. You have point somewhere here. When it comes about the next point, where's the next point? What along this line? Да? Where's the next point? In the middle of this cost. But middle, you see, we are working with this line, this blue line. Middle is here. What about we might see as a result? Trying to show it that these curves, and I did it too far, that these curves, they are intersecting at some moment. I hope you see this in my diagram. And when it comes about jigs, it was 14 items. But when it comes about assembly halls, the same period of time, because labor input is greater by assembly halls, in our calculation it was 160. You see, they may produce less, and it means that the place where you have this broken place, it became a little bit earlier, somewhere here. And next, we repeat it again. And next, and next, and next. Now it's too much complicated picture. I will try to repeat as much simple and primitive as possible. Do pay attention. What it comes about? That if you produce something in, no, let's draw so-called basic lines. Basic line include in our case, as we agreed, salary, rent, and amortization. And these basic lines, they are different for assembly halls and for jig. And moreover, it's a period, no, they are a little bit divided down. It's a period that when it comes about jig we using like this, the periods of time where the new jig must appear in our program. And when it comes about assembly halls, they are a little bit less, and it means that this grid is in different place. And now let's try to draw diagrams that I tried you to show how it's appeared. Now let's try to draw it in simplified way, like an approximate way. What I said, that these diagrams look like the maximum. Yes, it's maximum. Like this. Да? Вот. One curve. Next curve. Next curve. After calculation, we see this. What about assembly halls? We have these curves, but they are striving to this line, you see, to the another basic line. Like this. Like that. And so on. What does it mean for you? Let me to show it's more thick. Do pay attention only to thick lines. What do we see? For instance, we'd like to work with program, whatever value is, we'd like to work with the program here. And we need to decide what is more convenient for us, what is cheaper for us. I hope you see this. What is cheaper in this case? That is the price at the top. Now, here is our expenses. And we see in one case expenses are like this, in another case expenses are like this. If we work with this program, whatever this program is, no, let it be 4 items per year, we understand more rational to use assembly halls. Now let's try to find another place. Well, let it be we're going to work with a program 8 items per year. We see where our 8 is. Our 8 is somewhere here. And again, we're comparing our expenses. Let's compare. In one case, we have intersection at this point for our program. In another case, in this point. Which is less? Look at this. It's appeared that in JIC, whatever expenses for JIC are, JIC is expensive, but in this case, more rational to use JIC. Okay, let's check next place. Next place, no, let it be that one, да? That one. What are our expenses? Again, comes about changing of place. Now more rational to use assembly halls and so on. No, something like this you need to do in your economic section. You need to calculate a couple of points, and if possible, it's possible. You see, that was done practically manually, just in Excel. Да? If possible, you need to calculate something like ranges of values for your items, and these ranges of values next you may reflect in diagram. This diagram was given somewhere here, practically not visible now. Maybe it was given here and I can't see. Well, here is this diagram after calculations, barely visible for you. Practically nothing, because pre-gradient report, it's pre-gradient, this anti-plagiarism report, it's hiding the pictures. And what you see approximately now, that after calculations, student compose the diagram to show how these expenses changed with program. Here are checked program 72 and 502. Да? I do not propose you to repeat compulsory this economic section, but if you need economic section, you may use this as example. It's not exemplary, you understood, I hope. Especially when it comes about text, because if text is the same, it's show anti-plagiarism shows that you store it. But once again, what was about all these economic calculations? We took a whole understanding images, knowing the weight of your item, that one, that is given in a drawing immediately. Knowing the weight of it, you may approximately calculate so-called labor input. How you calculate it? We have diagram. These diagrams, they are given for watching what is the weight you are writing down and working next. Calculating labor input for both of cases, and start your calculations of salaries, of expenses of amortization, of expenses for rent, and so on. Of course, some values were just, forgive me, inventing. No, how to calculate the cost of tooling? How? Theory is rather similar to what we did with theory. We also have so-called specific cost of tooling of 1 kilogram of tooling, and we multiply it on the weight of tooling. What is weight of tooling? How to understand what is weight of tooling? Weight of tooling depends on the sizes and depends on the weight of item. It means that we also have another diagrams and taking another so-called specific coefficients. And after you calculate it all, you may approximately, either you calculate a couple of points, 3 points, for instance, to show like rationality for these 3 points, 3 different programs. This chart is dependence of expenses for one item, for one assembly item, like one frame or one spar or one panel. What are expenses for assembling in a shop of one assembly unit if program equal to, and next, depending on program, you see. And what I tried to show you in these diagrams, I tried to explain you what if you check in the wide range of program, what you may know that this diagram, it's not linear. It's not always assembly halls are cheaper and it is always more expensive. It depends on circumstances. I need you to understand exactly this. These circumstances are, above the all, what is the program of your manufacturing. And another circumstances are what is the size of item, what the cost of tooling you're going to use, what cost of equipment you're going to use, and so on. Now I will stop record